Hey there and welcome to Scandal Steep. Phyllis Hyman's story is one of brilliance and heartbreak, of standing tall in an industry built to diminish strong voices, especially those that dared to demand autonomy. Her life was a constant push and pull between artistic integrity and an unforgiving music business that rarely made space for women like her, bold, black, and unwilling to be molded into a commercial product. Born on July 6, 1949, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Phyllis was one of 7 children in a cramped, working-class household. Life was never easy growing up. Her father, Philip Hyman, was largely absent, leaving the responsibility of raising the children to her mother, Louise. That absence left a wound that would shape Phyllis's understanding of love, trust, and stability for the rest of her life. Even as a young girl, Phyllis stood out. She had a quiet strength, an almost regal confidence that turned heads wherever she went. Despite the chaos at home, she found solace in music. She would sing in school, at church, any place where people would listen. And when they did, they listened hard. Her voice wasn't just beautiful, it was arresting. Soulful, powerful, and dripping with emotion, it had a quality that made time pause. By her teenage years, Phyllis had already stepped into the role of a second mother, caring for her younger siblings. The weight of that responsibility forced her to grow up faster than most, leaving little space for the typical joys of childhood. Her early experiences, shaped by abandonment and hardship, planted deep questions within her. Would she ever become a mother herself? Could she bring a child into a world where she still carried the trauma of not having a father around? Yet, despite these emotional scars, Phyllis pushed forward. She wasn't going to be defined by her pain, she was going to transform it. She started singing in Florida nightclubs and eventually found her way to New York, where she landed in the jingle business almost by accident. It was a stepping stone that opened doors to bigger opportunities, including a record deal. By the mid-1970s, Phyllis Hyman had become impossible to ignore. She was statuesque, standing nearly 6 feet tall, with striking features and a commanding presence. But more than her looks, it was her voice, a deep, expressive contralto that captivated audiences and critics alike. She could move effortlessly between jazz and R&B, holding notes that seemed to bend time itself. Phyllis wasn't interested in being turned into a polished, radio-friendly product. She wanted full control over her music, her image, her career. In an industry that often treated artists like interchangeable commodities, this kind of self-determination was radical and dangerous. It put her at odds with many in the business, including one of the most powerful figures in the industry, Clive Davis. Davis, the legendary executive behind Arista Records, saw potential in Phyllis. He believed she could be a crossover star, someone who could dominate both the R&B and pop charts. But Davis also had a formula, a tried and true path to success, and he wasn't known for handing over creative control, especially to female artists. When Phyllis refused to compromise on her sound or image, friction began to build. On her third album, Davis stepped in heavily, even bringing in Barry Manilow to produce the title track, Somewhere in My Lifetime. The song performed well, climbing to number 12 on the R&B charts, but to Davis, that wasn't enough. He wanted blockbuster numbers, platinum sales, top 5 pop hits. And if Phyllis couldn't deliver those on his terms, he wasn't willing to give her the marketing push she deserved. Despite the pressure, Phyllis continued to pour her soul into her music. Her fourth album, produced in part by James Toomey and Reggie Lucas, marked a creative breakthrough. Released in 1979, You Know How to Love Me became her best-selling album, moving over 400,000 copies. At the same time, her personal life seemed to be falling into place. She had just married her longtime partner and producer Larry Alexander, and for a moment, the future looked bright. But that sense of hope didn't last long. Instead of celebrating her success, the label doubled down on control. Davis brought in more producers, more opinions, and more pressure. Phyllis continued to resist being molded, and that resistance came at a cost. She found herself increasingly marginalized as Arista began signing other powerful female artists like Angela Bofill, Aretha Franklin, and Dionne Warwick. Suddenly, Phyllis wasn't a priority anymore, she was just one more name on a growing list. Alongside industry battles, Phyllis's mental health began to suffer. She had long struggled with periods of depression, but fame amplified the darkness. She began to experience mood swings, erratic behavior, and emotional exhaustion. Still, she pushed forward. When an opportunity came to audition for the Duke Ellington-inspired Broadway revue Sophisticated Ladies, she jumped at the chance. Despite resistance from Arista, Phyllis saw this as an opportunity to showcase her talent in a new way. Her gamble paid off. When Sophisticated Ladies opened on March 1, 1981, at the Lunt Fontanne Theatre, it was a sensation. The show boasted an all-star cast, including Judith Jamison and Gregory Hines, but Phyllis stood out. Her performance earned rave reviews, a Theatre World Award, and even a Tony Award nomination for Best Featured Actress in a Musical. It was a rare moment of industry validation, proof that she wasn't just a studio singer, but a true entertainer. Amid her Broadway success, Phyllis released her fifth album, Can't We Fall in Love Again, bringing back producer Norman Connors. The album performed well, and the title track, a duet with Michael Henderson, became her first top 10 R&B hit. For a brief moment, it seemed like she had found her rhythm. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Her marriage to Larry Alexander ended in 1982. Losing Larry wasn't just losing a partner, it meant losing a manager, a producer, and one of the few people who truly understood her artistic vision. Their relationship had been complicated from the start. While Larry wanted a family, Phyllis wasn't ready. Some say she ended 2 pregnancies because she feared becoming the kind of absent parent her own father had been. Her past haunted her, shaping choices that would follow her for the rest of her life. Her sixth album, Goddess of Love, was supposed to be a fresh start. Instead, it became her weakest release. Davis brought in Narada Michael Walden along with an eclectic group of producers, creating an album that lacked cohesion or identity. The lead single, Riding the Tiger, barely cracked the top 30. Phyllis was crushed. This wasn't the music she wanted to make, and everyone, including her fans, could tell. The failure of Goddess of Love deepened the rift between Phyllis and Arista. She knew the label didn't understand her, but now it felt like they didn't even care. She wasn't the pop star they wanted. She was something else, something deeper, more soulful, more complex. But complexity didn't sell as easily. The label dropped her in 1986, ending a years-long relationship that had never truly nurtured her. Despite everything, Phyllis refused to give up. She hired new managers, Glenda Garcia and Sidney Francis, and signed with Philadelphia International Records. She released Living All Alone that same year, and it was exactly what the title suggested: raw, emotional, and drenched in loneliness. Her voice had never sounded more vulnerable. It wasn't just a return to form, it was a personal exorcism.